Joining us now with his perspective is Mark Grant, Managing Director of Southwest Securities and author of the new book, Out of the Box and On to Wall Street. Mark, thanks for joining us. You can set us straight on the Fitch rating, but it's not important really as much the letter and the sign after it as the fact that it was downgraded so much and the reasons why, right?
Well, not only that, what I thought was very interesting today was Fitch said, if you extend the debt, which is this very fancy European word profiling they've been using, which means nothing. If you extend the debt at all, they're going to call the Greek bonds in default, which has tremendous implications for the ECB, for the CDS markets, and for lots of contracts that have to do with the holding of sovereign debt.
What's the story with Norway cutting off payments, and now a few other countries have jumped on board, Iceland and Liechtenstein? What were these payments? I mean, I'm seeing numbers from Norway, $42 million, I think. What's the story with this?
They were going to lend them money, and I think Norway, that's a guess on my part, but I think Norway looked at how close Greece is to default, that they're actually right on the door of bankruptcy, and they said, why are we going to give them our money, the citizens of our country's money, if they're not going to be able to pay us back? So they stopped the payments.
And the Greeks weren't meeting certain obligations to get that money. I think it was for health projects and some other things, but the Greeks had to put in, and they weren't putting in their fair share, so the Norwegians are taking their money out, as are the Icelandic people and the Liechtensteiners.
That's correct. I think the other interesting thing that took place today was the IMF, even in the straits that it's in, came out and told Europe just point blank, you've got to straighten this out. And I think that also had to do with the realization by the IMF, because remember, they have skin in the game with money in that they've lent to Greece. I think they realize as well that Greece is like a hair's breadth away from not being able to meet any of its obligations, and their total obligations are somewhat over $1 trillion. Which is what most people forget. They think Greece is a small country, which it is, but they have tremendous amount of debt.
Well, it's interesting also that a lot of people are coming out and telling them they need to get their books in order. The ECB, one of those groups, the ECB obviously is necessary, or their help is necessary for Greek to move along in the first place, right? So they're saying don't default or don't reprofile or whatever you want to call it here. How can the Greeks respond?
Well, there's a tremendous rift right now in the European Union between the finance ministers of the EU and the European Central Bank itself. The ECB, I think in their own self-interest, see that if Greece were to default, they're going to have to take a rather large hit of somewhere around $130 billion, which would require them to recapitalize. So what they want the European Union to do is just give them more money. The problem is, giving them more money will not solve anything. It will just make the impending restructuring an even bigger number. What can Greece do? Nothing. They're out of money. They've run through all their money. They have a GDP of $333 billion, and they have $1 trillion in debt, and there's nothing virtually that Greece can do at this point except restructure.
What about the idea of going back to the drachma? I mean, is giving up the euro in any way, well, plausible, or in any way a positive decision on the behalf of the Greeks?
Look, there are only, which I outlined in my commentary today, there are only three possible options that make any kind of sense. One, Greece leaves the eurozone, Greece goes back to the drachma, Greece restructures, devalues their currency, and does what Argentina and Russia and many other countries have done in the last 40 years. Two, they stay in the eurozone. They totally have to restructure, which means haircutting their debt, all their debt, their senior debt, and paying off the debt holders at 30, 35 cents on the dollar. And the final option is that the European Union ponies up another $100 to $150 billion, but that's not going to do anything except add to the amount of debt and just forestall the eventual restructuring of Greece. I mean, we're right at the brink of Greece going belly up. That's where we are right now.
All right, Mark Grant, thanks very much. Unfortunately, out of time here, so we don't have time to get into your predictions on Spain or Portugal. I see that they are coming true, though. The wizard, as many call him there, Mark Grant. Now,